Hi there, Deb here with Sue Sternberg in Moab, Utah. And Sue is the person who turned me into the crazy dog woman you know today. And it transformed my life in so many ways. And just a quick short story of how I met Sue, that she was on a weekly program, Ask the Expert in...
Vets and Pets, or Pets and
Yeah,
Vets.
yeah, on NPR. And we had just had a really difficult dog die, and we were considering getting a dog, and they called it shy, and we didn't know what it meant. And so a friend of ours said, contact Sue, she will answer your questions. So we emailed you, and you gave us all this information about how to meet the dog. And you said, don't listen to anything they say, just go in and meet him like you would a normal dog. And we ended up not getting that dog, but then we went to you for the behavioral advice we needed when we got the dog we got, who was not shy, but who was like untrained and lovable, but needed some help. And so through Jake, you got me involved in agility, which you said would be a great way to bond, and it was. And I got hooked. And
that's so cool. That's great.
So anyway, so Sue and I had this fantastic hike while she was looking for dinosaur bones, which is
tracks.
In tracks. Is why she lives in Moab, and she has what name a few things that are named after you. Like, what things have you found?
Let's see. I found the longest Stegosaurus trackway in North America. That was published, and I found a bunch of other track sites. And I found this partial skeleton of a hadrosaur that was excavated. And anyway, and I found some insect trace fossils too. So
cool. And the fun part about going for a hike with Sue is she's seeing all this stuff that I can't see. You see, I'm going to talk to you. You see stuff I can't see, and it's just like when we're seeing things in dogs, you don't see it until you see it, and then you're wondering how did you never see
miss it?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. So
that's exactly.
Anyway, so I want to just say the OCEAN acronym because I think it applies. It's I didn't invent these concepts, but OCEAN happens to create a really good acronym. So observe your dog, connect with compassion, engagement with joy, attitude before anything, and never stop learning about yourself and your dog. And as I've started going through OCEAN with more and more people, I've realized the big transformations are happening with the people, and that really surprised me. That when they have an insight about the dog, it just it changes their lives. I guess Jake changed my life. So
and I think when it changes you as a person, then you're really ready to have a relationship with the dog. Like, it means you're sort of letting go and seeing the dog in as deep a way as you keep trying to see more. I just think it's the right thing.
Yep. And you've been involved in behavioral sciences and all of that for so long, and dog training. What is your perspective on like where training was 20 years ago, and then where it was like 10 years ago when Susan Garrett kind of exploded with all these, train your dogs using these, technical like chicken training methods, and where you see it today and where you'd like to see it go in the future?
I started dog training in 1981, and back then, basically there were, group obedience classes, and there were 40 students. It was in a huge armory, and there were 40 people and dogs, and every class started with 15 minutes of heel work, where you basically just heeled around in a large circle and did about turns and yanked the dog, and while the instructor, who was almost always ex-military man, was in the center calling out like forward, about turn, halt, and they lasted 6 to 8 weeks, and we used at the time we used nylon choke collars, and you only started using food when you progressed to the advanced and you were ready maybe to do competition, and then you could use food, and that was just starting in the 90s, early 90s. The Volhards, Wendy and Jack Volhard brought some of that out. What was his name? Oh my God, I'm so bad with names. There was one guy, it's a trainer, a man, and he wrote a book about and it was all how to use treats, to compete in obedience, and it was like, oh my God, he's talking about using hot dogs, and that was great. And then I've been around since now it's very positive, a lot of positive reinforcement. And I subscribe to, the Lima principles of least invasive or intrusive, I can never remember which, and minimally aversive. But I think most of dog training has gone a little too far off of the deep end, and I feel like good training is not in the middle, but is somewhere high on the positive reinforcement side. But I think saying no to a dog after, of course, you've taught him how you want him to behave, I think that's okay. I think setting some limits is okay. And I also think you just have to have as much in your toolbox as possible to help every person and every dog.
And what do you mean in terms of toolbox?
Not every method, but there's times when if you only use food that you can't use food. If there's times when, if you only use the leash, that you won't be able to use the leash in the way that you want to use the leash. So I think having broad methods and at least being familiar with all the methods, I think is good.
Well, something that I feel like has been limiting a lot of the people I've been coming in contact with and the people I see at trials and in, just everyday life is everybody's focused so much on like laboratory style training techniques that they're so busy with that they're no longer really connecting socially with this social animal.
Yes.
And so with Ocean, I'm saying, awesome. You need to understand how animals learn, but then you need to put it aside or put it in the back burner so that you can respond to the dog in front of you.
It's the art and science of good dog training, and I don't think you can scientifically say this is how you recognize when a dog's hitting threshold, or this is when you recognize like he's too frustrated.
Right.
There's no, it's by feel and observation in every circumstance, right? With every dog. So I think, in the end there's no substitute for just working with dogs. And the science is really important to know as your basis. But I'm all for the behavior, body language, temperament, like all about that. I think that should color everything that we do with dogs, who they are. And
I think another thing that's caused, frustration for people is, the explosion of online classes. And if the instructor isn't seeing that person's dog, the instructor, if she was there, she'd be going, oh, no, you don't do 40 reps. You do 3 reps and move on because your dog doesn't need 40. But the person is going, I'm a good student, 40 reps, and now all of a sudden my dog is not moving forward because he thinks that's it. So it's a really tricky thing to try to teach something without getting the feedback. And so, I'm constantly saying, but observe your dog. That's why observe your dog is the foundation of everything. And you don't go, finish that. That's part of everything you do. So that I can't answer questions about,
how many
how many failures before you withhold or you give the treat. And I'm like, observe your dog. You'll learn. So it's a tricky thing. So you've been taking on a new approach to Nosework that I think is pretty revolutionary, and some people in Ocean are also really active in Nosework. So I'd love for you to talk about how you approach it and how other people approach it. What's different?
Well, I resisted the sport of Nosework for a while because I was an agility person, right? And I just thought, Nosework is kind of boring. It must be so boring, and it's not a athletic sport and whatever. So I did agility for a long time, not competitively. I mean, I competed, but I did it for fun in a social event.
And you never got crazy and woke up at 4:30 in the morning to drive 3 hours?
A couple of times. Smart. I mean, I went to clinics and camps, and I loved that. But I got involved in Nosework, and I've also done tracking. And what surprised me about Nosework was, like one of the first things I asked was, well, what should I be doing? And there wasn't a lot of information. Like basically the information is follow your dog and stay behind your dog. And I went online when I was first learning, and a lot of the advice online was never stop moving your feet. Like, keep your feet moving, because if you stop moving your feet, somehow you'll cue your dog. So I was like, well, okay. And so what I've been doing is applying the basic sort of immutable laws of movement that I learned from Bud Houston in agility, and I've been applying them in Nosework because it's the same thing. And so, like, it isn't just, you can't just follow your dog. If the dog's in a straight line and you follow the dog, fine. When the dog starts to arc, if you tuck in to stay behind the dog, it's what I call drifting. You end up influencing the line. And there's all these things. It's like you want to orient where the dog's nose is searching, and you orient. And a lot of people don't want to frontally face the thing the dog is searching because they're worried the dog's going to alert. Like, facing it, stop moving your feet is a way to cue the dog to alert. So, and there's all this stuff that was in Nosework that I was like, well, wait a second. Isn't that a training problem that you're trying to fix with bad handling? And I think, so anyway, I've just been, it's not like a method or anything. All I've been doing is the rules of movement and how you affect another animal, human or dog, right? So, and I thought it seems to me like in Nosework we should be supporting the dog and encouraging independence. And what I always say is, you are building the joyous, independent hunting dog. That's what you want. And I would say, like, everything you're doing in the foundation should be putting deposits into the bank of joy and enthusiasm. And I took a stock photo of a bank and I put on a bank of joy and enthusiasm, and that's kind of what I talk about in Nosework. And it's the same in agility. Like, you watch in agility, you watch people correct the dog, even if they think they're being all positive, right? The dog gets an off course and the handler stops, and the dog like circles in and is like, well, what? I did exactly what you wanted. Or the dog pops a weave pole and the person brings the dog back and makes them do it again. And every time you do that, it's a tiny withdrawal from the bank of joy and enthusiasm, whether it's agility or whether it's Nosework. And what happens is there's like two different kinds of dogs. And half the dogs will get stressed and will get frustrated. That's a Western bluebird. It's bright blue. You got to turn around. Oh, maybe it's not. It is.
I saw a blue jay today with a black crest. I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, Steller's jay probably.
Oh,
God. But anyways, half the dogs with these tiny little withdrawals will get slower and slower, but it's a very slow process. So they'll get slower and slower, and it could take a year, or it could take 2 years, and the dog just stops producing the joy and enthusiasm, the independence. And then you'll hear people go, oh, I think he's getting older, or I'm not sure he likes it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And the other half of the dogs get angry. They get mad and they bark, and they, in agility, those are the dogs that like nip at you. And I see it in Nosework. And so
the same kind of thing. They either stress up or stress down.
Stress down, and the same kind of tiny withdrawals. And I say to people in Nosework what I say, and I learned in agility, which is, if you go for accuracy at the, early on when you're building a foundation, it is very hard to bring back joy and enthusiasm. If you go for joy and enthusiasm, you can always get accuracy.
Yeah.
So like these, trying to fix the dog on the course, you have to say to yourself, is qualifying at this one trial worth it for, because you don't really know ahead of time. Do you have the kind of dog that's going to slow down, or do you have the kind of dog that's going to keep ticking, So anyway, a lot of parallels for me.
Yeah.
And I credit agility with learning body language, how it matters.
Yeah. And I mean, is there a way you could define the difference between supporting a dog and helping a dog? Because I found myself having to try to explain that, the difference in being encouraging but not helping.
Yes, it's so apropos to Nosework, because like a lot of people will hear, oh, Sue Sternberg, and I work with Dana Zinn, who was like my mentor. She's an amazing Nosework person, and two of us are collaborating on the Nosework stuff, and we have a Patreon site. But we, I kind of forget, where was I going with this? What were you just saying?
About the difference between support, encouragement, and helping.
Yeah, so the word has gotten out about what we're doing, and people are like, oh yeah, they just want you to follow their dog. And it's like, no. Or somebody said to me, aren't you just making the dog do all the work? And I'm like, oh my God, no. So like, to me, I'm supporting the God that is my dog, the goddess, you know, this amazing nose. And I want her to feel that she is the miracle out there, right? And helping is not what you want to do. In other words, helping is if the hide was in this outcrop right here, and the dog wasn't getting it, so you step closer, or you put a treat on it so it's easier and the dog gets it. That is not supportive.
Right.
That is, and it's not learning. I mean, it's not good learning for the dog.
You could maybe even teach them helplessness and not trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the main things that you want out of any dog that you're training is the joy of the performance, the joy in the work with you, and the enthusiasm and endurance to work through frustration, to the love of problem solving, right? And I think that's really important for all dogs in their training.
Yeah. So you mentioned Pan in her learning style. Because there are people in Ocean who have dogs that have never really tried very hard. So how did you help Pan?
Yeah. So Pan is she's about 2 now. I've had her a year. I've had her just about a year. And when she came to me, I don't think she had ever been off of whatever ranch she was on. And I don't say that to make a sob story of her. Like, you know, I don't think she was ever off a tether, ever off that ranch. She'd never been taught anything. She didn't know sit or anything. And so I started training her, and it was hard at first. Like, she wasn't even interested in food. And she was a little fat. I had to get weight off of her, and then I got her interested in food, and we started training stuff. And then, of course, I really wanted to start Nosework because it's what I love. And I didn't expect that, you know, I didn't get her to be a Nosework dog, but I think it's a great thing to do with a dog. So I just started by tossing food, and she would go get it. And the first thing I noticed is if I dropped the food and she saw where it landed, she would go eat it. And if I dropped the food and it was out of sight and she had to do any searching for it whatsoever, she would just be like, oh, no, you know, like, I can't possibly, I'll just look at you or whatever. And then so I was like, oh, well, that's not good. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll only give her a treat if she actually searches for it, and I'll reward a little persistence. But what I noticed in her was she didn't seem to have any ability to deal with frustration, and she didn't have any perseverance to the task, at least for searching. And so I started training her. I started shaping different tricks and different behaviors. And because I feel like with shaping, you're playing with that frustration barometer at all times, at every, you know, and you can, as you train a dog, you're sort of saying, how are you doing here? How are you doing here? I'm going to make it a little more difficult. Okay, good. I like, you know, you're still trying. And you want to stop right before the dog goes, you know what, this is just too hard. So, and you never know where that moment is, right? So anyway.
Do you remember the first thing that did you like capture something she was doing, or did you purely shape from nothing?
Oh, I shaped from nothing. I shaped, I thought I would do a nose touch. So I started doing a nose touch. And I'm not a great trainer in the best of days, but I got her doing that, and it was hard because my goal wasn't that she would touch something with her nose, which she did, of course, the first session. My goal was how would she be if I tried to ask for raise the criteria, that either asked for duration or a pushier one or something. And it's all started coming into play. And part of this thing that snowballs is her love of training. Like she's like, God, just teach me something. Couldn't we work together? Yeah. She loves it above everything. And she's now so much fun in Nosework, and she's really persistent, and she keeps going. And it's not so much of the Nosework training as it is this sort of stuff everywhere else, where I said to myself, I need her to want to keep trying and to try harder, and I need to be able to control the increments so that I can build it and not overface her. And the thing about Nosework, it's hard to do just in Nosework because, I mean, you know, if I set a hide, I think, oh, this will be an easy one, and then the wind and the room or something, and it's not easy at all.
Yeah.
And so it's easier, I think, to build that stuff outside of Nosework.
Yeah, and maybe the other advantage for new trainers is that you're not going to mess with your sport. You can like mess with something that doesn't matter, which I think helps people be loose, that they don't have to worry about if they just mess it up entirely.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you planted a seed. This is off topic, but it's going to roll back right into this. When we were on our hike, you know, I was saying, you know, I was describing how different Dakota and Echo, his sister, are, and you met them as puppies, and they were, you know, that, you know, Dakota was the most social, the most interested in people, but the whole litter is very friendly, social, loves people. And, you know, I was saying, you know, I love the dog in life part of these, but I was really worried about Echo because she just spins out of control. She's one of those border collies that just shoots off, and she's super fast, and you know, I was afraid, like, I don't want that, you know, and I've said to Heather, I don't want that. I want like Dakota. I like, this is my style of dog. And you said, maybe it's not genetics. So I go to this trial. I just spend 3 days with Heather. She wants me to run Echo. So I'm warming Echo up the night before and just getting a sense of how she responds. So she's got a mark bucket and sending around this cone. And at first she's here, kind of skittish herself. And then she settles into this thing that's very, you know, like she's got it. She knows when I'm going to release, like, you know, we're like, and so then I stopped and I thought, Heather, why don't you work Dakota? Maybe you can run Dakota. And within 30 seconds, Dakota started acting like Echo. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it isn't the dog.
No, what it is, I call it the inseparable trinity. You can't ever separate dog, human, environment. And they're inseparable, right? There's always interactions going back and forth, and but and so they may have the same genetics, but what you brought out was a different thing.
Yeah.
And
that, so she naturally brings out that quality. Yeah. The upside is you get massive speed. The downside is you get this other thing, which is, you know, I mean, I don't like enough that I'm, you know, willing to maybe, you know, lose a bit of speed. Not that Dakota's slow, but he's not the fastest dog. He's thoughtful. And he and Lil are the same, which should have been a clue to me. They're different breeds, and they were both, they're you know, like when they run clean, they can win. Yes. But they never look like they were fast. People are like, how did you win? Because they just like do their job.
Yes, so, they're efficient.
Yeah. And you know, and then throughout the weekend, you know, I just kept, you know, watching, you know, the two of them work together, and we figured out a whole bunch of stuff that is confusing Echo.
Yes.
Inconsistencies about like start lines, which is context and start lines are the same thing. It's the same issue. And as soon as Heather got clear on this, like exactly what you're going to do, then Echo became absolutely calm, like eager, ready, but not.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It's the same with handling in Nosework. It's like one dog isn't better than the next.
Yeah.
You know, it's the handler that, instead of supporting where the dog is searching, is suggesting that we go search over here. Yeah. You know, those little subtle differences make they make huge impacts.
Yeah.
And then if there's no clarity, like at the start line, then the dog is going to be thinking that before you ever get to the start line. And so it's this whole cascade of events, right?
And Echo was so happy at the trial. And Heather was saying she's never seen her so happy, because she got this clarity about, we worked 3 mark buckets in a row. And she just, I mean, she's been getting happier and happier because, you know, Heather noticed some things in her day-to-day life that were causing her stress and changed it. But she was just, you could just see her. I've never seen her, like trials, she's always like serious and her tail's kind of down and like that. Yeah. And she was just like tail up, like being joyous.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And we always like, we're stuck in that moment, right? We just think, oh, that's how my dog is.
Right. This is my, and so when I was running her, you know, it was so clear that, you know, you, like Heather was going, oh, you know, you have a much higher energy than me. I'm like, it has nothing to do with anything that I did. I just ran your dog. We were connected, and all of a sudden she shot off, and no matter what I did, she would have shot off. Right. And that's, and so it's a disconnect. In a terrier, they might sniff. Another dog might leave the ring.
Yes.
Your dog is running around. And I think it confuses a lot of these border collie people. They think their dog loves working, but I see it the same as sniffing. It's just disconnecting and doing something.
It's
Yeah.
drinking, and smoking. It's just, it manifests in different ways.
Yeah. And yet it looks better. It looks because it looks like
Looks like there's more drive.
and it looks like the dog hasn't actually disengaged because they're just choosing their own obstacles.
Yes.
But so I think people let it go longer than they do with the sniffing dog, because who wants that? That's a bad look.
And it's so frustrating. Now you're pulling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was. I mean, it was
so interesting.
It was. It made me feel like I can get a puppy. I mean, if I don't connect with a puppy, I'm not going to get one. But
no, right.
But that feeling of worrying about all these things that I don't want, and because Dakota has crazy in him, he can chase waves at a beach till he's like a little speck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't emerge in our
right.
Agility, because there's always been, which brings me to the next point.
Yeah.
That on this trip, and we talked about it, that mark training, I've always thought it's that position, that rin tin tin position, that creates this emotional anchor, which is the term you coined and Sharon Nelson also uses. But now I think it's actually, and I'm calling it the power of the pause, and it could be the pause or the pause, that it creates moments where the dog can settle. And just like in play, dogs are playing, there's little moments of pausing.
You bet.
That I think, and I've done mark buckets with Dakota, like everything he learned was between two mark buckets. So everything is like pause, go, pause, and also like easy, a little hard, a little stressful, easy. So the passing a truck in an RV scenario, right? So he's starting in the coasting, then he passes truck, and then and I think that's just created a way for him to stretch and then and exhale.
And if you think about it, just in terms of like an arousal level, they're often, you want them really edgy for training, like really like eager, right? But it's a really fine line, and often I think, especially when they put speed in, they go over. They're just a little too high. And all the mark buckets, all of that is just like, come back down just a little bit. So you've got, and I think maybe it settles the learning in a different place. But I had the most amazing moment with you at Yellowstone Dog Sports Camp. I mean, I've told you this probably a million times, but we were working with Chappie, trying to get distance, and I was working with one of the instructors, I don't remember who it was, and we had just put out some like target plates, and we put just food right on the target, and Chappie would like sort of go out and grab the food, but she was not getting it. She wasn't getting like go at a distance, go as fast as you want. And we switched to the mark buckets, and it was astonishing to me, like immediately she got it, and she loved it more than just the free food. And I asked you, I said to you, like, what is that? Why were the mark buckets so much more compelling for her than food? Like, it was globs of chicken. And you said, because you're asking for a behavior.
You're running to
not just food, you're asking for a behavior. And that, like, I was like, oh my God.
Did I say that?
You did.
I'm so amazed I had anything to contribute to you. But
oh my God, no, you said that. And I talk about that all the time, because I mean, I think part of it's like the power of working with the dog, first of all, right? Like, it's better than just, like, they would rather, I think, in the right frame of mind, it's this partnership, and that they get more out of it than just like, here, eat that plate of food that's on the ground. You don't have to do anything for it.
Yeah, and that brings up this other point of this tossing food thing that a lot of people are doing right now, and they're doing it all the same, so they're learning it from somebody.
Yeah.
And I had one person in the test run of Ocean, I said, just give it a break going through Ocean, because her dog, has a lot of environmental focus and environmental concern about the environment.
Yeah.
And I felt like the dog is, he's not grabbing the food and coming back, grabbing the food and he's looking around. And I'm like, that's,
so they're throwing food like good jump.
They're calling it reset cookies.
Okay.
To get the dog moving. But in my mind, what it looks like it's doing is it's asking the dog to disengage. So in one of the Ocean things, we're doing touch and tone and doing this stuff. Yeah. And the dog keeps turning away from her and coming back. I'm like, that is the behavior the dog has associated with this thing with her of look away. So
yes. Interesting.
And then a friend at this trial, she has one of those border collies that does one obstacle and then comes back in and, in front of her and then goes out and comes back in. And I was watching her before a run, and the dog was looking at her, and she'd throw a cookie, the dog would grab the cookie and come back. And I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning and I went,
Oh.
that's what the dog is doing on the course.
Yes.
So give it 3 months off.
Yeah.
And go through the ocean stuff. It will give you a different way of interacting with your dog to keep them engaged instead of that. And I bet you anything, that's going to disappear because your dog's doing what she thinks you want.
Yes, what she's been reinforced for.
Yeah.
And she's applying it.
Yeah.
She's a freaking border collie. They'll apply it everywhere.
Yeah. So it was really cool to, because when I was watching it, something about it, I was kind of going, and I couldn't quite pinpoint
what you didn't like.
Because she was doing it perfectly.
Yes.
The way, like in a trainery way.
Yeah.
And then it just took me like 3 nights of sleep and waking up.
That's when I have my thoughts too.
Yeah.
I know.
That's the dog is just doing that.
Yeah.
And the other woman who was very reluctant to give it up, after a few months, she said, you know what, I didn't, I was very reluctant.
Yes.
Because I couldn't believe that everybody has told me, including the control on leash, she's been through all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And she said, she's getting better engagement. The dog is looking to her.
Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah.
These trends, right? This is a trend right now, is to throw the. You know what else I don't like about that? And it goes back to what you were just saying about going to the food plate versus. It's like we're engaging that chipmunk part of our dog's brain, like get the food. I want to engage the part of my dog's brain that's like thinking like that the dog is working with me, that like they like it.
Yeah.
They like to go, I know what you want. You want me to go over those 2 jumps and run to that mark, and I can stay here. You can't make me leave.
Right.
They want they want to show you what they know. And this other thing is evoking this instinctual, this
something else.
Yeah.
And I mean, like if I'm running Chappie and Nosework, and there's multiple hides out, I don't praise her. Like she just like feed me here, and I'm off.
Yeah.
And there's times where I just feed, mindlessly. Pop a cookie in, but it's not. I don't know. There are trends, and of course, like I'm trying to make a trend, right? I'm trying to get people aware of what their body language is saying.
Yeah.
But I'm not making it up. It's.
Yeah.
I'm. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
It just is like if I.
Is it hard to teach people through the digital format for them to understand the
No,
nuance,
as long as they can see video, like with me, if I can show video and slow it down and freeze frame, I'm like, I feel like it's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have to sign up then because I
But
want to see what you're saying.
It's hard though, because like somebody might watch it and say, oh my God, this is great, I get it, I so get it, and then I might watch them with their dog and I'm like, I don't think you get it.
Yeah.
Or you get it but you're not applying it yet.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have the coaching and the practice for it. But
what's the name of the course? Like, how do they find you?
So it's Patreon is the online educators forum. So Patreon, and it's called I think it's the Sternberg Zin or the Zin Sternberg Nosework Collaborative. But if you probably if you just Google Dana Zinn or Sue Sternberg on Patreon, there's not Google it, but search for it.
So Nosework, what came after Nosework? The word
collaborative.
Collaborative. Okay.
Collaborative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll get a link and add it to this at the end.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's and I mean for $3 a month you can get a newsletter, and for just a little bit more you'll get 2 video shorts every month. And
that's great.
Yeah, on different topics, and it's interesting. It's fun.
Well, I think for the people who do Nosework in Ocean, that it's in keeping with what they're doing. That
it is. There's so many similarities.
Yeah.
And I think part of the part of it is getting back to the joy, like making that's what you want out of the dog. Because like if you feel joyous, the dog feels joyous. If the dog feels joyous, we feel, right? It's like why we like hiking with them.
Yeah.
And I think supporting that and making state of mind sort of more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Especially, and I think that's really important.
Yep. And something that's come home on this trip, and I knew stuff was going to come home on this trip because I've been so engaged in creating Ocean, then to step back and this really, the thing is Oh, did I just forget it?
Oh, good. I'm so glad, because I'm thinking like, oh, I think Mom got Alzheimer's because I.
Well, it's the afternoon.
Just
it is the
drop
afternoon.
off.
This is the time of day that we should all be sleeping. It is. The dogs are mirroring our connectedness or disconnectedness. And as I was watching everybody at this trial, it was so clear to me that the person is disconnecting in a subtle way. And if we always do it in training, our dogs will disconnect also. And I want to tell you one other thing that happened that was so fascinating. Dakota has never left me to sniff at a trial. Like it just.
Yeah.
So we were the first dog up. And it was a chances course, and I've not been running chances. I've not been doing NACSW. So he's not expecting a normal chances. And this was very unusual. There were 3 parts of it. Opening line was fine. Then there was 1, 2, 3, all in a row. Things I thought, ooh, these are going to be little lies, because I got to tell him go on out of the tunnel. Then I'm going to have to call him back, because he's got to go out a little. And I'm really clear about pre-cue the tunnel. Go on means go on. Turn means turn. Like he knows before he goes in always. So I thought, okay, there's a little lie. He'll forgive me. So. And then there was this other weird line where then they're facing an off-course jump, so it's another lie. He's ahead of me. I can't be there because of the line. And then there is one more very awkward S-curve where you have to bring him in unknown, so another lie, and then you have to turn him out. He comes out of that tunnel, and he runs to this spot in the grass, and, like he went over a jump and just took off, and he was so engaged in the sniffing, he dropped to the ground.
Wow.
And the whole dog was flat. And I knew it had nothing to do with that.
That's right.
That was the expression of 3
Yes.
lies, and he is used to maybe 1 here and there, like when I make a mistake, but 3 in a row, he was like...
He said it's unfair.
Yeah. So, I actually...
it's amazing.
I put my hands under his chin, because he's not being a bad dog. He's just basically gone...
Yeah.
So, and as I leave the ring, everybody's like, oh, there must be something terrible over there, blah, blah, blah. I said, there is something over there, but that wasn't why he did it. That is just what he did after this thing. And a whole bunch of dogs kept going over there. Second round, same course. I handled it differently, so it was less lying.
Yeah.
I just was more, whatever. And he then also expected weirdness. I didn't think for a second that he would go and sniff. I just, if the sniffing wasn't there, he would have still gone around a jump.
The smell was still there, but the disengagement wasn't going to happen. That made that aware in his line of vision or in his thought.
And then the next day, my friend Heather, she goes to him, he goes, don't sniff out there, and I'm like, I'm not even thinking about that.
No,
that's not what he was doing.
Right. That's not what's going on.
Right. So people who think they have a
sniffing
problem or an off-course problem, and they keep working on that, you might sideways kind of be working on the thing that's before that, that you might sort of fix it without even knowing what you were fixing.
Right.
But if you work on that moment, then that's what goes back to this, observe your dog. You start seeing the slight, like with Dakota, I can see when he's gone, what was that? I see it in him.
Right.
And if somebody said, well, what exactly do you see? I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
But I think it's the stuff that our senses take in, and it doesn't rise to consciousness, and that's what we call intuition.
Yeah, it happens, so many behaviors happen so fast. We thin slice it, right, as Malcolm Gladwell says, and we just get it in that moment, but you can't, there's not enough time to articulate the 7 things that you saw in the span of, 0.02 seconds that gave you that. Yeah, it's like when, if I call an alert and it wasn't where the hide was, it's so interesting because, Chappie's sniffing and then, or doing her thing, sniffing you want in Nosework, and if I say alert, she'll look at me like to me it's like, wait, what? and I don't know exactly.
Can you take it back at a trial? Can you say, take back?
No, I was watching a video though, and at one point I was like, and I didn't say anything more. No, you can't. It's so funny. But yeah, and I think again, like the checks and balances, the withdrawals versus the deposits, and I think we have to be so careful in our sports with our dogs, because it's too easy to want to win, to want to do something, to qualify, to one must always be grounded in the partnership and the dog herself. One of the things that I believe in Nosework, and I believe it in all the sports, is I don't, like a lot of people will say to me, oh, can you help me? I want to adopt my next dog, and I want a really good Nosework dog or something. And I'm like, I can help you find your next dog, but I guarantee you the dog that I look at that I think will be a great companion and partner, you'll think has no drive. And what, to me, drive is built. I think what people think is drive is just arousal and chaos. And I think any dog that is physically capable, you know, you have to have a body for it, and if you're fit, and there's clarity and huge deposits in the foundation for joy and enthusiasm above all else, I think you get a drivey dog. And to me, it's all built over time, as well as it's taken away. And so if you take a dog that doesn't have a lot of, you know, I always say some dogs are born with the trust fund, right? So their money's already in the bank, and you can make all sorts of mistakes with them. And if you choose the kind of dog that has lots of, you know, innate drive, you can get away with a lot and still have a dog that goes fast or whatever. But you can take a softer dog, and you can take a dog that doesn't have that innate drive and build that dog into a drivey dog. And I think it has way more to do with the connection and how much you're putting in and the clarity of it, I think.
Well, the way it feels to me is the training techniques that I learned from Sharon Nelson, that they evoke drive. Versus I'm not getting my dog to give me drive.
No.
I'm providing an environment that he can, the confidence, and it comes from this place of confidence, and they want to show you, like we all want to show something, like look what I did, I made this painting. They the same way, they want to just, they feel proud of themselves. They like it.
You shouldn't have to like crank the dog up to get him going. The task itself should be the trigger, like, oh my God, are we going to? This is fantastic. And it is.
So, if I not asked you something that would be a great thing that you want to share with people that, you know, they love their dogs, you know, I believe everybody who signs up for Ocean already has a deeper relationship with their dog, or they wouldn't be signing up, right? They'd be like, you know, just show me how to get my dog to do that contact. They would be signing up for that class.
No, that's right.
So for people who are really, they are committed to, you know, developing, like, and my thing, one of my little sayings is that when communication flows equally in both directions, training is a shared language. And
absolutely.
So do you have like one of those?
Well, I mean, when I work with shelter dogs, that's the thing. Is, I mean, for a lot of the dogs that I meet in shelters, they're adolescents or they're adults, and many times there's been nothing dependable and nothing orderly about being with a human. Like, it's random chaos, right? You might get loving this moment and then yelled at that moment, and the dog's like, oh, I don't know the difference, like I don't know what I did here and what I didn't do there. And to me, what training does, positive reinforcement training, is it makes order out of disorder. It takes chaos and it all of a sudden now it's like, wait, the dog says, if I do this, you'll do that, and you're like, God, yes, and if I do this, are you going to do that? And then it's the shared joy of it, and that it's not random anymore, that there's a communication, it's a question and answer.
And they have power.
They have power. They have autonomy.
Things happen.
Have to. They have to have the ability to make us do things as much as we want the ability to make them do things. And like,
we're just picking things that aren't quite as annoying as the other things they're doing.
You bet. And we hope that
you hear Lil in the background the whole time.
Hello. What was I going to say?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. My thoughts today are all just like on the brink of the cliff. What was it about?
Well, I broke in and was saying something like they're doing things that are less annoying than the things they do if we weren't engaged in some sort of training.
Oh yeah,
that.
what was it though? It was the give and take, the giving them choice. What was that? I don't remember.
You can text me or email me and I'll put it in.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not that important.
Well, I think we've covered a lot. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
taking the time. And that hike, I wish I had us both on mics on that hike.
Oh, there's good stuff going back. It was really
Yeah.
stimulating.
And talking about, the search and rescue and Nosework sounds a lot alike, where you have to, trust that the dog does their job. And
It's invisible.
And not get in the way of what they're doing. And yeah, that's my one regret having moved to California, is I had to give that up. Not that you actually do that many searches anymore with the GPS. They can ping somebody's dead cell phone and then they just send in the people on the ATVs to get them. But the few searches I've been on, it was to see the dogs working, to see them find a person and save somebody's life. It was like
so amazing, right?
And they love it. They're so that. And I just love that they'll just do it for 8 hours, to keep rescenting them. They're just like, this is what we're looking for. Just like the next day Dakota found that pencil. I didn't have to do the pencil thing.
No, they're like, I got it.
Yeah, forever. He now probably smells every mechanical pencil in the universe and just goes, there's a pencil somewhere.
Right, it's important now.
Yeah.
I just want to say for people who are listening that, because when Nosework started by the National Association of Canine scent work people, and it was Amy Hero and Jill Marie O'Brien and Ron Gaunt, and they were professional detection people, and they started a sport, and they created a sport out of nothing, and they created it with such foresight and thought and care in mind, and it's an incredible sport. And now, it's been 10 years, 12 years since its inception or longer. And now, the AKC has gotten involved, the UKC, and there's all the different scent groups. Just like agility started with one venue, and now it's all of its different flavors. And I want to I'm a diehard NACSW.
NACSW?
Yeah, National Association of Canine Scent Work. They're the founders, and I'm really loyal to them. And part of it is because everything they do, first of all, it's for any dog, and second of all, they favor the search over anything else. Like, they want the dog to be able to access his instincts and go hunting and enjoy it, and to be able to have that in a world where, here they can access their instincts on a hike, but a lot of places they can't. And so I would say, if you want to get interested into the sport, find a CNWI, a certified canine nosework instructor.
CNW, that's something different than
NACSW, they certify instructors, and their instructors are CNWI, certified nosework instructors.
Okay.
But I would go NACSW, and I also would support them because for the very first time in the dog sport world, they embedded into the sport what Sharon Nelson did with NADAC. In other words, they cared about the dog's temperament and behavior during a trial and during training, and there are protocols in place, one at a time. A dog can't be crated here when a dog's searching there. But like the brilliance of Sharon Nelson in NADAC, so that dogs weren't rushing out of the ring at another dog. NACSW took care so that dogs who were reactive with other dogs could still do the sport, and it doesn't mean your dog, that all these problem dogs do nose work. It's freaking incredible sport, but I think what they created was where you want to start and where you want to learn about the sport for you and your dog. So, huge NACSW fan.
One thing you said on the hike that surprised me that's worth saying is that you mentioned if a dog is overweight, it reduces its ability. So say that line.
There was a study, I don't remember where it was published, but dogs who were out of condition, who lacked fitness, their olfaction was reduced by 63%. Because again, like a lot of people come into Nosework because their dog is old, decrepit, crippled, or can't do agility, right? And so, and I'm here to say, Nosework is an athletic sport, and it is, especially with the new summit level. But I'm like, yes, you can do it with a dog that is really old or compromised or has one leg or whatever it is, but it is an athletic sport, and like one of the things I'm on my high horse about is dogs who are overweight. Like you see that less in agility because everyone sort of understands that these are athletes.
Yeah.
And I think judges, when I was doing agility, maybe it was just NACSW, the judges had the ability to say to a dog, I'm sorry, you can't compete because you're too heavy. But one of the things in Nosework is even a little bit of weight affects the dog. And we know now from a lot of these studies that it affects olfaction, but it affects their energy level. It affects everything about them.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nosework is an athletic sport. We are asking them, we want them to feel their best. We want them, you know, so anyway, I'm on a high horse about that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, just like right now, we're in the afternoon, we're not at our best, you know, so the same thing with dogs, that they're going to be better able to keep in touch with the team sport of it. Like, I'm watching this, I need to tell her this, you know, I like these two things, which is the search and rescue thing too, is they need to then communicate, like not just, I found it, okay, well, what?
No, right, it has to, it has to have meaning to the partner for both,
So one last thing is, like, I've seen gazillions of your, you know, the dog-on-dog interaction at dog parks. Where can people find some of those videos?
So Sternberg.com has links to my Great Dog Productions YouTube channel. So I've got some training videos on there, short ones, and some dog park videos on there. And you can go to dogwise.com, and all my DVDs and books and stuff you can get from there. Tawzer Dog, TAWZER, TawzerDogVideos.com. They have a lot of my seminars on DVDs and live streaming as well. And if you want to study the minutia of dog body language in the smallest detail, I have a 3-hour and 40-minute DVD set called The Ethogram, and it's literally just like I've broken down licking into 4 subsets and panting into 3, and if I did it now, I could break it down into more subsets as I see more. And it shows every single behavior, slow motion, normal speed, slow motion, so you can study it. And then at the end, there's some interpretation in terms of, like, here are the behaviors of dogs under bite quarantine who have a bite history. Here's what, you know, dogs do who are, you know, going to make a great companion, whatever. So anyway, that's the ethogram. And if you're a behavior geek and you'd like to sit home and study behavior and brand all the different positions and into your brain, the ethogram is for you. So,
and you are like a true expert in the realm of behavior and all of that. The thing I find interesting is I'm not an expert in anything to do with dog training.
Yes, you are.
Well, I think I'm an expert at trying different things and responding intuitively, because I may not see all the things you see, but at some level I'm taking it in, and so I think the reason I'm doing Ocean is, like, this is what I do. I don't, anybody can get better at observe your dog, connect with compassion, which creates engagement with joy. In the other two, like, there were 2 more letters, so it's like attitude before anything. Never stop learning.
Never stop learning is really important.
Yeah, we tried some other ones that just kind of went, eh.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it almost turned it to C instead of Ocean.
Oh.
SEA. That would have worked too.
Too short.
Yeah.
No, you need more letters.
Yeah, anyway. Well, this is really fun.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
It's nice to sort of formalize what we talked about on the hike, and
and then we both. I hope we hit on the.
I think we did.
Okay.
I think we did, and we both sat with it for a while too, so it kind of percolated. But there were so many. I don't know. There's so many parallels that are really cool.
And you know, and I think, like, in the horse world, there are people doing this with the horse world. Like, the people go to a clinic, and the first thing they do is all the people are sitting around in a circle in chairs with their horses elsewhere, and they're just getting in touch with what they bring and, you know, what they're, you know, like, just because we're creative. I mean, the more I think about this, the more I'm thinking that these dogs are mirroring this stuff they're seeing in us.
There was a study recently that showed, like, owners who are neurotic have more neurotic dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Well, and
not that we're to blame for everything that our dogs do, you know, like, again, there's the trinity, right? The dog comes to the table with his aggression thresholds, his behaviors, his sociability, his temperament.
yeah,
And then, you know, he lives in one environment, or,
Yeah.
you know, you change his environment. So it's all interactive, but we can't always control that. We can change who we are as
Yeah.
much as possible.
yeah, and you know, it's like accepting the dog that you have. And I think we've all been in a relationship with somebody, not necessarily romantic, but just a relationship where you feel like around them that you can't be yourself, and then you don't know how to be because how
Right.
else are you going to be? And
Yeah.
I think a lot of dogs feel that way when they
Yeah.
can't be themselves.
Right.
That
Yes.
we're not allowing you to like show we've overfaced you. You know, the dog will just kind of sit there versus go,
Yes.
you know, take a quick sniff.
And that the way they behave when they're a little overfaced can look like they're very well behaved,
Yeah.
but they're a little suppressed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we used to do,
Yeah, but and there are a lot of dogs that are
suppressed.
suppressed in the same way that people in relationships, you see a couple and you're like,
Yeah.
you can see that person has been suppressed.
Yes.
And so it's, yeah.
And like, you know, at my age or whatever, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I know the things that are not going to change. I'm going to stop like trying to change that part of me.
Yeah, yeah.
That I've been trying for decades to change, and I'm like, that's who I am. And if somebody doesn't like it, they should go find another friend, you know.
Yeah.
And I think with our dogs too, they are.
I think they've been telling us that, right? They've been going,
They have.
if this is who I am, if you don't like that, I'm just going to be like, I'll just go along because
Yeah.
I have to. But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well.
and, you know, one of and now we're going off, but Sharon Nelson has the term enthusiasm and impulse control, and she call it something, and so I changed the and to a plus, so it's epic, enthusiasm plus impulse control. And so the whole purpose is that you increase your dog's enthusiasm and then you notch up impulse control as needed versus trying to suppress the enthusiasm to match the current level of impulse control.
true.
So it's really clear, right, which one you're trying. And when you're there, you're on the edge. And so failures are a sign you are on the edge versus a sign that you're failing. So it's like a complete reversal of all of this.
It's so important, and it's again that the understanding that, you know, getting enthusiasm back is
Yeah.
so much harder than
Well, you remember
finding it.
Jake, when I came to you, I said somebody told me to get control of my dog, and they told me how, and I did it, and I was like, oh. And I had an obedient,
Yeah.
and that is not he's not the obedient type of dog.
No.
But you got him back by just that we never corrected. You know, it was just a matter of like go with whatever. And
Yeah.
I feel like it didn't take more than
No.
like a week.
Yeah.
It's just like he was like, okay, you're back, thanks, cool, let me be me again. And he'd occasionally run off his whole life, you know, and it's like, so what? That's part of who he was. It was just,
Right.
he was a clown and I was the straight person in the comedy act. You know, and
Yeah.
I really think he actually considered all of that
Yes.
when he did it.
Absolutely. I mean, totally like a sense of humor.
Yes.
And yeah, I think my dogs have a sense of humor, and I think, like, I'm sort of astonished how similar Pon is turning out to Chappie and my last dog, and I'm like, wait a second. And then part of it is I have a way of laughing when something goes wrong with them, you know,
Because
in
you
the
really
house.
are in a state of this is funny versus, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
They get that. I think dogs get the honesty.
Oh, yeah.
That everybody's seen somebody go, you know, they screw up at the very end of a course and they're like, it's okay, blah, blah. You're like, you're lying. You're like, we can all see it
Yeah,
lying. You're
and
like,
the dog,
going,
of course,
yeah.
knows. I mean, you know, it's nicer than actually just getting angry.
Yeah.
But, like,
We all can see through it.
they know. And it must smell totally different, like
Yeah.
hormonally. Like, it must be glaringly obvious for the dogs.
Yeah. And dogs, they are okay with it if it's all in, you know, if it's under.
Most of the time, they won't even know,
yeah,
like,
that's true. If you're
because
really
it's
good
not
at it.
their mistake, right?
That's right. That's what I learned from you. And Bud, too, he was all about not letting the dogs know. Yeah, he had a lot of great stuff to offer.
Oh, my God. I quote him all the time.
Me too.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And I told him, I contacted him, and I was like, oh, my God, Bud, I am taking you with me to Nosework. You are everywhere. I'm like spouting Bud. My newest thing right now is is the idea of straight lines, sharp corners, and no rounded. You know, like Bud would always set up the audience, and he'd go like, "What's the dog's path in a serpentine?" And everyone would go, "Well, it's like an S," and he'd go, "No, it's dogs are like straight lines and sharp corners. If you see it as a curve, you're doomed."
Yeah.
And I think I'm just starting to formulate it in Nosework, but I'm like, I think we're trying to find straight lines and sharp corners and there's something about it. I still don't know what I mean by it, but I know it's important.
Yeah, it will come at 3 a.m. and
Yeah, or slowly it'll come at many 3 a.m.s.
yeah.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're really done. So
Great.
we'll do one more. And.
Okay, good. We're done.
Okay, I'm going to hit the end buttons.
Okay, let's make sure it didn't turn off after 5 seconds. Although if it did, that's it.